Hi, good morning. Welcome to my Wednesday devotional. I hope you guys are staying cool in this very hot weather. That's why I'm in the dark. It is just roasting right now here in the DC area. It feels like a shower, a very hot, humid, sticky shower outside. Ugh, we're in the dog days of summer right now, but I won't complain. I know it could be worse. I've lived in places where it's worse. So anyway, all right, so if you hear the fans, that's actually going on in my next room. So if you hear that, please forgive me, but it's very hot. So, all right, in the interest of the heat, I'm going to cut through what we already talked about last week, which is about celebrations. Okay, and I discussed that last week, but the reason why is because I've got a lot for this week. We got 4 very long verses. My hands are a little bit tired from writing on the board, but that's okay. I love my whiteboards. I know. It's kind of low tech. I know. All right. So this is Esther chapter 9. These verses are 24 through 28. All right, I'm going to read them and then we're going to talk about it. Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews, had plotted to crush and destroy them on the date determined by casting lots. These lots were called Purim. But when Esther came before the king, he issued a decree causing Haman's evil plot to backfire, and Haman and his sons were impaled on a sharpened pole. That is why this celebration is called Purim, because it is the ancient word for casting lots. So, because of Mordecai's letter, and because of what they had experienced, the Jews throughout the realm agreed to inaugurate this tradition and pass it on to their descendants and to all who became Jews. They declared they would never fail to celebrate these 2 prescribed days at the appointed time each year. These days would be remembered and kept from generation to generation and celebrated by every family throughout the provinces and cities of the empire. This festival of Purim would never cease to be celebrated amongst the Jews, nor would the memory of what happened ever die out among these descendants. All right, so we got a couple things going on. First of all, the story recalls about Haman, good old Haman, right? The enemy of the Jews, and how they got their comeuppance. Him and his 10 sons were impaled, not just on a regular pole, but a sharpened pole. In other words, not only were they slaughtered, they were just slaughtered badly, which quite frankly seems fair to me, considering they were, Haman and his sons were going to do all that anyway to Mordecai and all the Jews. So, that's just my flesh talking. Now Jesus might have another answer, but okay, but in any case, this is the Old Testament, and the Old Testament, does have, is before Jesus, and so the Old Testament, to me, is more in my opinion, more of a humanistic, realistic view of human behavior. But then Jesus comes along, and in the New Testament, he's going forward with a new way. So, everyone has differences of opinions. So we're just gonna leave it at that. All right. The reason why I want to talk about this one is because what they had experienced. Verse 26. How many times in the Bible do you hear anyone say, well, because of what they experienced? I mean, wow, that's, now the translation I do use is New Living Translation. It is a little more Americanized English, so maybe perhaps there's a little spin on there, I don't know. But it just makes me think of what we're hearing out in the world right now. Because of what someone had experienced, they go and do acts of murder or get drunk or, whatever kind of behavior. It's interesting how it's predicated by because of what someone had experienced. So interesting to me, that just kind of hit me because of what they had experienced. I'm like, wow, usually you don't see that in the Bible, where they're drawing a connection between what had happened and the actions taken. Your feelings and then the behavior after that. Because a lot of the time you read stuff, the headlines in the news, someone was murdered and whatever. They don't really go too far deep into, the criminal mind and why did they do that. So I don't know, just something I was thinking about. But the other thing is, I wanted to point out that they declared they would never fail to celebrate these days. You know, that Purim is like 1,000% important. And I'm wondering if maybe the prophets, or, you know, maybe it's just their gut feeling, you know, that we need to get this on the books every year. We can never let the Jews forget their history. And I think that's interesting, because what are we seeing right now in 2024? A lot of people just, you know, schools aren't teaching history, or they're spinning it, or whatever. And if people would look back, even as far as Civil War, you know, or World War II, or whatever, you know, the lessons learned, you know, maybe we could do better now. You know, just something to think about. So I just think it's interesting that even back then, this is before the time of Christ, you know, after David, King David, you know, that they would never fail to remember. And same thing, this sums it up, verse 28. This festival of Purim would never cease to be celebrated among the Jews. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, nor would the memory of what happened, kind of comes back to what they had experienced, what they had happened, ever die out among the descendants. So that's twice now that they're mentioning what they had experienced, what had happened. I mean, wow, that's kind of, I think it's big for the Bible. You know, usually you're just hearing about all these events going on, and King David did this, or blah, 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 blah. But wow, twice mentioned, you know, the memory of what happened. Like, it's sort of like, have you heard that statement, you know, I can forgive him, but I'll never forget, you know. I might have said that once. But, you know, you do, as humans, we do that, you know. Even if we get to the forgiveness process, it's hard to forget when someone's done you wrong, right? I mean, that is kind of common sense, and it is also self-preservation. If you already know that person's been mean to you, do you really want to go hang around them? No. It's just not common sense, right? It's not good to keep putting yourself through that abusive cycle, and I think it's also fair. But Jesus does call us to forgive. Now, the forget part, I don't know. Still working on that. I know I am, because I'm a great accountant. I remember a lot of stuff, and I can remember from 30 years ago or whatever, you know. But we won't get into that. The point is, it's interesting to me that they're like, we are never gonna forget, and we're never gonna let our descendants forget. So this holiday, this celebration, is really about, hey, this is our heritage. You know, that's when, because of Queen Esther's courage, and Mordecai, you know, who was very instrumental in Esther's life, you know, put it all together, and her courage to go to the king, you know, and the king, his actions. So really there's like three parts there. The Jews were saved, you know, which is really because of God, who's really the one orchestrating all this. But down on the ground here on planet Earth, you know, it's these humans. So very interesting. As we're getting right toward the end, we're almost there. That's why I'm kind of doing a lot of verses, so that I can take a break and reset and think about what I'm going to do next. But yeah, this is just, I don't know, just interesting that the Bible twice mentioned what they had been through. You know, that's very compassionate and interesting that the Jewish people, and even to 2024, they are still celebrating Purim. In fact, it's in my calendar. I have a paper calendar, and plus I have my one on the computer, and it actually has Purim on there, you know. So it's still celebrated today. All right, wherever you're at, I hope you're staying cool. You know, for me, once 4th of July hits, then, you know, I'm starting to think about fall and cooling off. So hopefully we've been through the worst. I'm hoping. You know, triple digits are kind of tough around here because it's hot and humid. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Like I said, we'll be ending it at Esther 10. I think it's 4 or 5 verses there. And we're almost done in chapter 9. So not much longer left on this story. And interesting to watch this whole arc, you know, how it all started with, you know, Esther not thinking she could do this. And then she did. And then with the help of Mordecai, you know, and where did Mordecai start, you know? It's gonna be really interesting. It's just it's kind of like the story of Rocky, you know, the underdog and how he fights and wins. So it's sort of the same thing, same concept here. So very interesting. All right, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a great summer. All right, we'll see you next time. All right, bye bye.